first graders. We talked yesterday about using our hand to help us with a five-finger retell. And remember, a retell is when we listen or we read a story and then we tell about the characters, about the setting, and we tell what happened in the beginning, middle, and end of the story. And we can use our hand to help us. Remember, characters, those are the people, the animals, or the objects that the story is about. The setting, I'm wiggling my next finger, is where the story takes place. Where does the story happen? Then we ask ourselves, what happened in the beginning of the story? What happened in the middle of the story? And what happened at the end of the story? So we like to think of our story with the most important parts at the beginning, the most important parts in the middle, and the most important parts at the end. So today we're going to read Chester's Way, and we're going to practice retelling Chester's Way together, okay? He always cut his sandwiches diagonally. He always got out of bed on the same side. And he never left the house without double knotting his shoes. Chester always had the same thing for breakfast, toast with jam and peanut butter, and he always carried a miniature first aid kit in his back pocket, just in case. You definitely have a mind of your own, said Chester's mother. That's one way to put it, Chester's father said. Chester's best friend Wilson was exactly the same age, the same way. That's why they were best friends. Chester wouldn't play baseball unless Wilson played, and they never swung at the first pitch or slid head first. Wilson wouldn't ride his bike unless Chester wanted to, and they always used hand signals. If Chester was hungry, Wilson was too, but they rarely ate between meals. Some days I can't tell those two apart, said Wilson's mother. Me either, said Wilson's father. Chester and Wilson, Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. They loved to go on picnics. Once when Wilson accidentally swallowed a watermelon seed and cried because he was afraid that a watermelon plant would grow inside him, Chester swallowed one too. Don't worry, said Chester. Now if you grow a watermelon, I'll grow one too. Chester duplicated his Christmas list every year and gave a copy to Wilson because they always wanted the same thing. For Halloween, they always dressed as things that went together. Salt and pepper shakers, two mittens on a string, ham and eggs. They really are two peas in a pod, said Chester's mother. Looks like it, said Chester's father. In spring, Chester and Wilson shared the same umbrella. In winter, they never threw snowballs at each other. In fall, they raked leaves together. And in summer, they reminded each other to wear sunscreen so they wouldn't burn. Chester and Wilson. Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. And then Lily moved into the neighborhood. Lily had her own way of doing things. I'm Lily. I am the queen. I like everything. She wore band-aids all over her arms and legs to look brave. She talked backwards to herself sometimes so no one would know what she was saying. And she never left the house without one of her nifty disguises. Lily waved at all the cars that passed by, even if she didn't know who was in them. And she always carried a loaded squirt gun in her back pocket, just in case. She definitely has a mind of her own, said Chester. That's one way to put it, said Wilson. When Lily asked Chester and Wilson to play, they said they were busy. When she called them up on the phone, they disguised their voices and they said they weren't home. If Lily was walking on one side of the street, Chester and Wilson crossed to the other and hid. She's something else, said Chester. Looks like it, said Wilson. One day, while Chester and Wilson were practicing their hand signals, some older boys rode by, popping wheelies. They circled Chester and Wilson and yelled personal remarks. Chester and Wilson didn't know what to do. Just when they were about to give up hope, a fierce-looking cat with horrible fangs jumped out of the bushes and frightened the older boys away. Are you who I think you are? Chester asked the cat. Of course, the cat replied. Who's the cat? Thank you, Lily, said Chester. You're welcome, Chester, said Lily. Thank you, Lily, said Wilson. You're welcome, Wilson, said Lily. I'm glad you were wearing a disguise, said Chester. And I'm glad you had your squirt gun, said Wilson. I always do, said Lily, just in case. Afterward, Chester invited Lily over for lunch. You have a muscle mouse cup, said Lily. Of course, said Chester. I do too, said Lily. Same here, said Wilson. Chester and Wilson cut their sandwiches diagonally. Lily asked Chester's mother if she had cookie cutters. and she made stars and flowers and bells. That's neat, said Chester. Wow, said Wilson. That night, Lily invited Chester and Wilson to sleep over. You have a nightlight, said Chester. Of course, said Lily. I do too, said Chester. Same here, said Wilson. Chester and Wilson wanted toast with jam and peanut butter for breakfast the next morning. Boring, said Lily. Try this instead. This is good, said Chester. Wow, said Wilson. After that, when Lily asked Chester and Wilson to play, they said yes. When she called them up on the phone, they had pleasant conversations. And if Lily was walking on one side of the street, Chester and Wilson waved and ran to catch up with her. Chester and Wilson taught Lily hand signals, and she taught them how to pop wheelies. Lily taught Chester and Wilson how to talk backwards, and they taught her how to double knot her shoes. Some days I can't tell those three apart, said Lily's mother. Me either, said Lily's father. Chester and Wilson and Lily, Lily and Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. For Halloween, they dressed as the Three Blind Mice. For Christmas, Lily gave Chester and Wilson nifty disguises, and they gave her a box of multicolored shoelaces, extra long for double knotting. They loved to go on picnics. When Chester and Wilson told Lily about how they had each swallowed a watermelon seed once, Lily swallowed 3 of them. I'll grow a watermelon plant for each of us, said Lily. In spring, Chester and Wilson and Lily shared the same umbrella. In winter, they never threw snowballs at each other. In fall, they raked leaves together. And in summer, they reminded each other to wear sunscreen so they wouldn't burn. Chester and Wilson and Lily, Lily and Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. And then Victor moved into the neighborhood. All right, guys. Now I am going to practice retelling Chester's Way. So I'm going to get my hand ready. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the characters. The characters in Chester's Way are Chester, Wilson, and Lily. Those are the main characters. The setting takes place at their houses and in a neighborhood. In the beginning of the story, in Chester's Way, it talks about how Chester and Wilson are the best of friends. Chester and Wilson do everything together. And then a new girl named Lily moves in. In the middle of the story, boys and girls, it talks about how Chester and Wilson don't really want to play with Lily. Lily tries to hang out with them and they ignore her. Until some bullies were being mean to Chester and Wilson. And Lily was dressed up like a cat and jumped out and scared them away with her water gun and with her cat costume. After that, boys and girls, Chester and Wilson wanted to be friends with Lily. So at the end of the story, boys and girls, it talks about all the different ways that Chester, Wilson, and Lily like to have fun together. They spend the night at each other's houses. They dress up for Halloween together. And they do everything together. And they're the 3 best friends. And the very last page, it talks about how a new mouse is moving in to the neighborhood. And I think Chester, Wilson, and Lily might be a little bit nervous. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to my retell. Tomorrow, you boys and girls are going to start practicing retelling our stories as well. Awesome job.